Welcome back to the secret underground lair. So here are the pieces for our Bedrail router sled Z-axis. We're going to get away from the plunge router base and make something a little better. So I got my 8mm rods, linear bearings, brackets to hold the 8mm rods, a couple brackets to hold the router, threaded rod, and this little T-nut is going to be sitting in here to grab that threaded rod to give us the up and down movement that we need. So ultimately these guys are going to go on here like this, holding the router like that. Threaded rod will go through that lower hole. Can't get it through there. Threaded rod will go through these two linear rails on the linear bearings will be here, mounted onto the brackets here and here. Yeah, that's the idea. So today's adventure, assemble that. So to start this little operation, I'm going to take these 2 1/4-20 nuts that I've got. They'll be inset into this little slot so that the bolt going through here will be able to grab that. Then I want to insert these linear bearings into these holes, and I'm going to use some heat to press this T-nut into that bracket. So I'll go over to the vise, I'll just tap these in, I'll come back when I'm ready to heat sink that. So I've got the nuts now embedded deep into the slots that I printed here. Linear bearings are now pressed in place, and I'm just going to get this T-nut now embedded into this piece as well. I've on this little piece, can't really see it very well, but there are 4 slots around the hole that correspond to the little slots on the T-nut. So I'm just using a soldering iron. I've taken the tip out of it and just using the heat of the iron itself, I'm just pressing that down onto the T-nut, and hopefully the heat from the soldering iron will transfer to the T-nut just enough that we can push that into place. And I can feel it already going down, so that's good. I'm really just wanting to get the teeth of the T-nut embedded into the plastic here. I'm not looking to drive the T-nut all the way in itself, but that's going to be just fine. So got that embedded right in there. Very happy with that. Okay, let me do some more assembly. All right, so here is the router mounted on this little Z-axis sled. And you can kind of see how that motion is going to work. Of course, it's going to be vertical, but just for the sake of this exercise. This is going to be mounted on the X-axis or the Y-axis sled. So it's going to be screwed into a 1/4-inch piece of MDF that's on the bottom of the sled there. There'll be a box built up all around this. Just realized I may have a bit of an issue with that as I'm looking at this, but we'll address that in a minute. Right, so how much travel do I want out of this? And the bottom line is, from the bottom of the rails to the top of the table is about 2.5 inches, maybe 2 1/4. So I'm not going to have a lot of clearance with this CNC machine, but accounting for variable degrees of bits here, I'm going to allow about 3 3/4 inches of travel on this. So I can put in a shorter shank bit and I can still access the full depth of the cutter. So that means that I can cut these rods here and wind up placing the top top bracket about here, which means this whole apparatus is only going to be about that big. Maybe a little bit longer so I can put the motor on top, but it doesn't need to be a huge deal. In fact, I'll probably make it as tall as the router itself in this position so that I can get the motor and some clearance up here on this end. Sorry, up here on this end for the stepper. These rods, by the way, came out of, they're 8mm rods that came out of an inkjet printer. So when I come across an inkjet printer that's been scrapped, I'll tear it apart and pull out the 8mm rods out of it. And then I got the linear bearings just off Amazon some time ago. A bit of a problem with these bolts. These are just hex head 7/16 bolts. I'm going to swap them out for a little cap screw with an Allen key in it, so that I can tighten them up a little bit better. It's pretty awkward to try and get a wrench into that bit there. So that's where we are with this sled. I'm going to go pick up some of these and come back and rearrange this, get this on a little snug, make sure it fits. Then we'll figure out what we're going to do to make it fit on the bed rails. First, bite of lunch. So here are the pieces now cut down to size. So the rail is cut to the right size that I want. The backer is cut to the size that I want. We get good sliding up and down that rail. Of course, I can't do it well with one hand, but so that's going to sit in there like that. I have cut our back piece for the box to go there. Well, side pieces actually for the box. So they'll go on like that. I'm going to attach these sides to the back using some barrel nuts and bolts. So I'll get that put in there because this back is MDF. Doesn't have a lot of purchase, so I want to use these barrel bolts. So it'll be glue and barrel bolts to get it all together. And then I'm going to have the barrel bolt coming through the bottom into this piece to hold that in place. And all of that, of course, is going to be sitting in here. So just give me a second here and I'll set that up so you can see what it looks like. And that's kind of the general idea of what it will look like when it's in place. I'll probably rotate this around a little bit just so that that cord doesn't have any binding or rubbing up against the side. And there will likely be a piece across the front here just to kind of box it in. I'm toying with the notion of cutting this off at a bit of an angle and then putting a plate on here where I can attach the dust collector hose. I'm not sure if it'll have any effect. It may not, since all the dust is coming from underneath, so that may not happen. I do have clearance along here too for the belt, so I've got space for that to float and move freely. And yeah, so the next step will be gluing and assembling all this stuff together, and then I can do mount the stepper motor on top and get that mechanism to work. But I'll leave that for today. Just another short video, just a quick update on how things are progressing. As you can tell, things are going kind of bits of dribs and drabs here, a little bit slower than other projects I've had in the past, but that's just the nature of how things have been lately. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. I will see you on the next video.